Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Lionel Strang, the man, the one, the only, the evil overlord.
You know what?
I know a lot of stuff, but what in particular, I'm not sure.
Well, you know what?
Why don't you tell us?
I'm very edgy for this particular show.
Oh, you're edgy.
Bernard?
Ooh. Edgy
Yes.
evil overlord. Oh, because Bernard's here, you're edgy?
Well, yeah. I don't know how many times I've said to Bernard. I'm very edgy because the person we're going to interview tonight is also from Southern Ontario. So it's it's a show of only people that live in Southern Ontario, Canada, or within
within about a 2-hour drive of Toronto.
You have to either live in Toronto, a little bit north, or a bit west.
Yes,
to be on this show.
And if you meet those criteria, you're on this podcast today.
Yeah, and it's making me very nervous. You know how I am about Canadians on the podcast.
Nervous, but this will be fine. This will be fine. we got the all-star cast here.
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to keep. Geez, I just had a thought. Thank God. I love Lauren.
Better write it down.
And Lauren, I love you, buddy. I love you like a brother. But man, can you imagine what the show would be like if we had Lauren James on here too?
Oh, be wild. You'd be pounding your head about buses or something.
Yeah.
But he's on vacation, so you're okay.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's down the state somewhere on vacation.
Oh, look at that, Lauren being on vacation, and it's November too.
Yeah.
Or early December, or early November. It's sometime in the fall.
It's sometime in the future.
It's sometime in the fall. Yeah.
But it is this year.
Maybe. Depends on whether we have somebody else that's more interesting than our guest, and he keeps getting bumped. Yeah. Although I got
or Lionel forgets where he puts the tape.
Yeah, or I lose the tape.
A year and a half later. Oh, remember this one we did back then?
Yeah, that's right. I find it in the back of the filing cabinet. I keep all the, once I get the shows are done, I transfer them all to cassette tape.
Yes,
because I find they're easier to lose.
They're easier to store, easier to lose. See, if you kept it on the big reel-to-reel machine, then you wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, I should. Bernard, you're being awfully quiet. That's making me nervous.
Yeah, no, but then they wouldn't fit in the refrigerator. And don't you need to season them?
You got to keep your comedy fresh.
Absolutely.
That's been my latest thing on Facebook because I spent quite a bit of time in Pennsylvania in the summer. And I thought, I had so many pictures. I thought, I'm just going to keep posting them on Facebook. And people kept saying, oh, you're still in Pennsylvania? And finally I said, no, I just keep my photos refrigerated. That way they're good for days, weeks, or even months later.
Exactly.
And works with cassette tapes too.
Yeah, it does.
Cassette tapes as well, yes.
I was so nervous about tonight's show. I was trying to make myself a refreshing beverage for in the studio.
Yes.
And ice cubes kept flying everywhere.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
We have an older fridge. It's probably 20 years old now. It's a side-by-side. Right. And, with an ice dispenser.
Yeah, we got one of those in our machine. It's nice.
But our fridge has got to be at least 20 years old, but it continues to work. So you're worried about getting rid of it. And it's like clocks in cars back in the 60s and 70s. You'd work for the first 6 to 7 months, and then that would be stuck at, at 3:15. So our ice dispenser really hasn't dispensed ice for many, many years. But so you reach it. Yeah, it makes ice.
Ice. So you got to reach in, pull the drawer out, and grab a handful of cubes.
Yeah, you can. It will make the ice. You just won't dispense the ice. So I had ice cubes flying all over the place tonight for some reason or other. So are you excited, Bernard?
I'm very excited.
Do you know who our guest is?
I do.
Oh, you were reading the pre-show notes?
I was. Oh. I got the briefing document. I studied it.
All 450 pages?
And then I flushed it.
Attaboy. What were you doing today, Bernard, at the old Mini Prints World headquarters?
I was getting the Mini Prints of the Month Club out.
Oh yeah, right.
Well, and what's on this month's mini or the month's? Let's see what's on the mini prints the months you're working on.
Yeah, let's assume that this is sometime back in the summer. What was
assuming it was the summer? I probably would have been doing a harvest theme for August if it were the summer.
Okay.
If it was the fall, I'd probably be working on some Halloween with some new glow-in-the-dark resin.
Ooh.
And if it was the late fall, I think maybe turkey might be on the menu.
Gobble gobble.
Gobble gobble.
All right, cool. And how many pieces of mini prints do they get in the mini prints of the month club?
Oh, many, so many.
So many.
So many.
So let's, for example, say this is the harvest theme. What would you be flogging or putting in the package for the mini print of the month people?
If it was the harvest theme, they would have got 2 galvanized steel stock tanks.
Nice.
They would have received a 500-gallon propane above ground storage tank.
Right.
A heating oil tank to go by the side of your house in case you don't use propane.
Full or empty?
Completely full.
Okay.
Yeah, with HO scale propane.
Nice.
Or HO scale oil, depending on how you
depending on which it is. Yeah.
A set of 4 different mailboxes.
Holy mackerel! How much is the mini print of the month club?
Oh wait! It is only $24.99 US. However, there's more. But wait, they also would have received some pack mules. They would have received
all in one thing.
All in one thing. Oh yeah. Oh, it's many things. It's $50 worth of value for $24.99.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot more than $50 worth of.
You know what? It's fine. It's. I like to pack it full of things because it's the mini prints of the month club subscribers get treated very, very well.
Okay. Well,
it sounds that way.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll talk more about mini prints later because we're already 7 minutes in the show and
can I ask Bernard just one more quick question?
You know, don't forget our guest is also refrigerated.
Yes, I know. He's chilling out. How are the sales of the moderately agitated mailboys going?
They are going extraordinarily well.
Beautiful.
Don't ask him that question because I listened to fans of the AML number 53 not that long ago. I refreshed to refresh my mind.
Yes.
And we got to the part where I think you asked Bernard then how many mailmen or moderately agitated mailboys had been sold. And he goes, just a minute. I can look that up for you. And there's a lot of, let me see. And he goes, you want dollar value? And I went, no, just how many? And he goes, let me see. And I said, Bernard, it's 105. Well, yeah, that's what I told you yesterday. Well, then that's fine. So I'm still agitated about that. Here, all these months later, I'm still agitated about that.
Moderately agitated, or
no? He's full blown agitated. I've known him I know him long enough from his tone of voice. He's full blown agitated.
All right. Tonight we're going to talk to Nick Masney, who lives in Southern Ontario, and he is the proud owner of ITLA Models. I'm always concerned I'm going to get that name screwed up.
You're going to say ITLA?
Yeah, ITLA Models.
ITLA Models.
Yeah, there you go. So let's get Nick in here. Let's get him out of the refrigerated green room.
Let him go the big walk-in refrigerator.
Yeah, Bernard, you're pals with him. You go get him.
All right. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Come on. They're ready for you.
Yeah,
well, if you were just going to yell, I could have done that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well,
hello, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing,
well?
Nick?
I'm doing well. I'm all chilled out and ready to talk.
There you go.
I don't suppose you happen to have lived in, our moderately agitated mailboy. He's originally from Windsor, Ontario.
That's amazing. I must say I know a number of fine people from Windsor, Ontario.
There you go.
And Bruce, I'm sure I can count you as one of those guys.
There you go. And so you're one of the ones who know that Windsor is indeed south of the border.
That's right. Yeah, the automotive capital of Canada, by the way.
That's it. It used to be.
And do you know Bruce lived near the CP main line?
And he's lucky because I didn't. In the south end of Windsor, there was no railway. Oh, I shouldn't say that. The Canada Southern went through.
And the Southern went through there up out of the yard off of Dougal there.
That's correct. So I do remember hearing whistles as a small kid, and in the heat of the Windsor humidity and in the nights, and you can hear those whistles.
Yes, good times.
Good times, sticky times.
Were you around for the Detroit riots, or was that before your time?
I would think I might have been a little too young to remember that.
Oh, okay. Because Bruce remembers it vividly.
Yes, because that's the year it was 67, and the week the riots were going on, we were at Expo 67 with my parents. So I was about the only kid at school who had no stories to tell about being down at the river watching Detroit go up in
watching
flames.
It burn. Yeah. Wow.
Because, and you were looking north. The kids would have been looking north.
Exactly. They would have been right along the river, Dieppe Park, or there, and looking north over the Detroit River to Detroit, the Penobscot building, and seeing flames or seeing columns of smoke. And
explain to me.
Hear gunshots.
So when I get on the Ambassador Bridge,
yes,
am I going north?
You're pretty much, Ambassador Bridge is pretty much north-south where it is, yes.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going into Detroit, you're going north.
I did not realize that.
Yep.
Until just this moment. What about if I'm in the tunnel? Am I going north?
In the tunnel, you're also heading north to Detroit.
I did not. Did you know that, Nick?
I did.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This moment brought to you by Great Moments in Geography.
yeah, Great Moments in Geography. Exactly. Are you a Detroit Red Wings fan, Nick?
Well, you know what? I being that I grew up down there, you would have thought I would be a Detroit Red Wings fan, but I was schooled at an early age by my father to like and respect the Toronto Maple Leafs.
There you go.
Attaboy. So
you're not old enough to remember, though, at a time when if Detroit was playing a home game and CBC was airing the Leafs game, it would be delayed until sometime after the first period was of the Detroit game was done because they didn't want to interfere with the Detroit had some. They can't show the Leafs game until a certain time. So anytime Detroit was playing home, the Leafs around, they were usually about an hour and a half later than everywhere else in the world.
That's true. I do remember some of that, Bruce. Yeah, for sure.
So just so people are fully aware, because we have people all over the world that listen to us. We have Nick in Switzerland, and Peter and Matt and Gordy in Great Britain,
UK,
and people on all. We got lots of people in Australia. So just so everybody understands what we're talking about, Detroit, Michigan, Motown, hockey town, the center of where the Supremes came from, and Smokey Robinson and Stevie
which was Motown Records.
It was Motown Records. There's a river between. That's right on the river that separates Canada and the United States.
Exactly.
And the river is what, maybe a half a mile wide?
It's about a mile wide.
About a mile wide.
Yep.
And so directly across the river, to the south actually, is Windsor, Ontario, which is a much smaller town.
Yes.
Still a fair size, but a much, much smaller town than Detroit, Michigan. And that's where we're talking about.
Yep. And I always thought the advantage of growing up was Windsor. You had being in Windsor, but you had all the advantage of the concerts and sports and stuff in Detroit, but you didn't have to live in Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm still kicking myself because Motown, I was 10 or 12 when Motown became Motown. And if I'd realized that Motown was so close to where I lived, which was 3 or 4 hours away, I would have got my license 3 or 4 years before I should have, or was legally allowed to, and driven down there and tried to become part of Motown. I would have been the little white kid in Motown.
Yeah.
So, Nick, you're the proud owner of ITLA Models. Is that what it's called? Short form?
Yeah, ITLA Scale Models is what I call it, yes.
And how long have you been ITLA Scale Models?
We have been ITLA Scale Models for almost 10 years now.
And did you? Is it something you purchased, or is it something you developed?
Yeah, so it was a going business that was named Imagine That Laser Art, which is what ITLA stands for. And it was started in the year 2008, and we bought it in 2012, and we've been basically running it, changing, growing, and kind of trying to achieve a little more scale fidelity and some uniqueness and configurable kits and things like that we can touch on probably too, Lionel. But so it was a purchase that we had made 10 years ago.
And it seems to me like it must have been a major success.
Well, and to be a bit modest, yeah, it's been fun. It's been good. No complaints at all. But it's been a lot of work. I'll be honest with you. When we bought it, I originally thought that I talked my wife Renee into, hey, this would be a great retirement thing. Except I was a lot of years away from retirement at the time. So, we ended up working obviously two jobs. Basically the business ITLA and then our own jobs, and it was pretty consuming over the course of your day and your week and your weekend. It just became a consuming activity. But hey, it's been rewarding in many ways, and in all honesty, it's I kind of, as a modeler myself, it's fun to, as to create and also to give, and to help people, and to basically provide something that somebody's going to enjoy for hopefully a long time to come.
So is this your full-time gig now?
It is, and it's technically because I retired a couple of years ago from General Motors.
Wow! So it must have been in the last couple of years that you were still working at General Motors. You guys must have been going like one-arm paper hangers.
Yeah. We certainly were, and it was tough, man. Especially when you were going to go to some shows, either in the U.S. or here in Canada. That just ramped things up even more, and it was busy times.
Because sure. Bernard, please feel free to jump in, and of course you too, Bruce. But you already know that. Correct me if I'm wrong, or pardon me if I seem uninformed. But this ITLA model seems to have, in the last 5 years, kind of exploded. Kind of like it became like, I don't know. I first noticed you, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago at Springfield, and I knew of it. I've imagined that models or whatever it was called, and imagine that at Laser Art. And then I remember kind of stumbling onto it, kind of going, holy smokes. And as the last 3 or 4 or 5 years have gone by, I've become more and more aware of it, as others have. And like, am I like completely out to lunch? Was it like a really going concern, or has it the last half dozen years really been
been good? Yeah, it's been better for us. Yeah, I would say that early on, when I was learning my way through the business as well, I was learning the technology of running the lasers and designing the product. And what I had to do early on was to modify a lot of the designs that came with the purchase of the business. Some of them I just personally wanted to make better, and that took a lot of time. It took a lot of energy to get them turned over into something that I saw as the level of quality that I wanted the ITLA brand to represent. And as the first few years ticked off, we started to pick up some speed. And as you have noted, in the last 4 or 5 years, we kind of hit our stride. And yeah, we've been going pretty strong ever since. And during working hours, I had my GM job. Renee would be at home when she wasn't working, and she'd be running lasers, and we'd be filling orders and all that good stuff. And I'd get home from night, and I'd work the afternoon shift, so to speak. And then you'd shut her down and start over the next day. But we were going pretty good, and then I've accelerated a little more since I've been retired. So. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that you've seen more of us in the last few years, because we've really been putting a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I seen you around here and there, but what impressed me was last year when Lionel and I went down to the manufacturer's open house at Otter Valley, and that's where I really saw your stuff that I recall firsthand, and I was absolutely blown away by the quality and the detail of the product you were offering. Was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, thanks, the quality of the product is, because I interviewed you, it was probably, I guess, 2019, before the pandemic, is when I interviewed you at Springfield. And I kind of remember walking by the booth a couple of times thinking, should I know this guy? And I'm looking at the stuff and I'm thinking, man, I mean, for people need to know that your models, your kits are just fantastic. They just kind of ooze. No, like you want to kind of build them, and they just just before we go on, I noticed that your phone number is 1404. Imagine, look at that.
Yeah. Yes.
Ooh.
See, his number is actually the word imagine.
Yeah.
But
By design. Yes.
Imagine that.
imagine that.
Exactly. I see you guys are catching on. You guys are pretty sharp. It took how many minutes now? What are you, 15, 20
Well,
minutes?
Yeah.
It took you a while,
well,
but-
yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty good for us getting it out that quick.
Yeah, that's kind of record time there. So it's actually 404-462-4463. And your
Yes,
website is ITLA Scale Models.com.
Yes, sir.
Really easy to find. And man, I'm going to go to the home. I'm going to go to the home page now and just drool over this stuff. I've been drooling over I have been.
I've been drooling looking at the Grimsby Station kit. That's a
Oh, have you?
beautiful piece.
Okay. All right.
You should buy that and build it, Bruce.
Uh-huh.
Or not? What
I would
not?
agree. I would agree with that.
I would agree. Yes,
Well, why not?
because I got about 10,000 other things on my list.
Well, okay. Well, yeah, no different than people say, yeah, I interview this guy. No kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
How many different individual kits do you have?
We're pushing about if you count Lionel, the buildings plus the detail kits, etc. So we're pushing about 125 or so SKUs or part numbers.
Wow.
Which is a surprise. It surprises me every day too when I look at my stock drawers over here. But we've grown quite a bit since we bought the business for certain.
All right. So to see the kits, you just basically go to the home page and start scrolling down or search scale here. Okay, I see.
Yes. Yeah.
So then you go.
Best to scroll down and see what I've got. I'm trying to make the website as clean as I can and yet present as much good information for the modeler to understand our who we are and what we represent.
I see a lot of your things are both HO and N scale. It's I imagine there's some tweaks you have to make to crank out the N scale stuff. It's not just a matter of scaling down.
You're right, Bruce. It's not as easy as it sounds, and we do offer some O scale, limited O scale at the moment. Eventually, I want to get a little more into that, but when you can easily do the percentage shift. So 1 to 87 is HO, and everybody knows that if I multiply by X percent, I can get to N scale, and Y percent I can go to O. But you have to begin to consider the mechanical connections between the parts. And you got to consider the thicknesses of the materials that you're dealing with. And, so you've got to make adjustments to tab sizes and wall sizes and window sizes and things like that to shift between scales.
Yeah, and I would think certainly on the brick ones too, you got to, the mortar lines and stuff are so much smaller.
Yes.
So you got to, kind of take that into account that you might not have exact scale mortar lines and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to try to ask you this question, and it's not going to come out right, but I'm going to give it a shot. No, it's like there's a Grimsby Station kit. Yeah, you should build that, Bruce. That's right up your alley.
Yeah,
it is.
It is beautiful. I keep looking at it, going, "Holy cow!"
Well, and the thing of it is, so I'm going to try to ask this question without sounding like a complete goof. But like when I look at your kits, they're just so artistic and so magnificent. I don't know what other words to use, but somehow you have an eye. Even if you just look at this very simple, the HO brick building. It's a $39.99 kit. It's a square building, but you seem to. It's so artistic and so.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I mean that's what I noticed with your buildings. It's just so.
Thanks, Lionel. I appreciate you noting that. And a lot of the buildings too will be, you heard me say it earlier, configurable. So what I'm trying to do is provide the modeler with an opportunity to reconfigure the walls and to achieve something that will fit the space that they have, and also not look like that the plastic kit that you see in the catalog everybody has on their layout.
Right.
So, if you look at to the left of that brick building on the website, you'll see the Olympia tool and die in 2 configurations shown on my website. But the reality is that building could be built in about 12 different footprints, which I give you the information contained in the instruction booklet. But, so you could do tons of stuff. You can combine kits together. So you could build 2 buildings and bash them together. and create an even larger structure. And it's you just have to. I hate to use this. You're going to say it again. Imagine that, but you just got to imagine what you can do with the stuff as it sits in front of you.
Okay, let me ask you this question. This is another goofy question. That's pretty much all I ask is goofy questions, right? Bernard, you're making me nervous because you're so quiet.
Well, I mean, it's so fantastic. What can I add? I mean, you guys.
Your check is in the mail, Bernard.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, you got it. When you go off track, I'll jump in.
All right, but you're making me nervous being quiet like that. I'm not used to you being quiet.
There's a first for everything.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this question. And Bernard, I'm interested. How long have you two known each other? Bernard Helen of Mini Prints.
Yes.
And for the longest time, I spelled your name wrong and said it wrong, but it is in fact Bernard Helen of Mini Print. The problem with your last name is it's too obvious. When you go to say it, is it Helen? And it's like, no, I can't just be Helen. And it is, in fact, Bernard Helen.
I'm going to change my last name to Mini Prints.
Yeah.
There you go.
How long? So you two guys are quite good friends. How long have you guys known each other?
I think a couple of years at least.
Yeah, at least, or even more than that. I think, Bernard, didn't we first run into each other at the Toronto train show?
Well, I'm trying to think. Was it Steve Duranix who first introduced us, or did we meet before? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
a fellow Southern Ontario modeler who goes by the name Muskoka Steve on YouTube, who has a fantastic layout, from a gentleman from Cambridge, Ontario, I believe introduced us.
Muskoka Steve.
Muskoka Steve.
So should we be interviewing him someday too?
He's actually just building a brand new house, and I think he probably designed the basement first.
Perfect.
So he's putting a house on top of a basement.
That sounds like our kind of guy. So so you guys met each other at a show and started, and you were you Mini Prints at that point, Bernard?
I was not. I was Bernard Helen Model Railroader, and what attracted me immediately to ITLA was the detail, because I think that's really, when I heard you talking about Nick, what really sets it apart for me are all the little details, because his work, you said artistic, and the art that I see in it is all of the detail work that he includes.
Yeah, it's that too, but I mean, these buildings are so, they get so much texture. They kind of suck you in. So my question to you, Nick,
yes.
Well, you know what? I've seen a lot of stuff. And your stuff is like really, really good. My question to you is, when did you start to realize, or did you start to realize, or have you ever realized the quality? Like, was there a point where you started kind of going, wow, I'm really good at this?
I'll be honest with you. I think I can do better. I honestly don't think I'm where I want to be yet in terms of the kits and what I think I can deliver. So, I know I'm going to sound modest here, but I just want to make sure that I put out as high quality a kit as I can possibly put out. And I want to provide yourselves, the modelers, with something that's truly unique, and more importantly, something you're going to enjoy putting together and cherish, I hope. So, to answer your question, I really haven't realized how it's perceived. It's not easy because, I'll be honest with you, talking to guys like you, as we're doing right now, you get feedback, which I'm receiving and I appreciate very much. I don't often get that direct feedback because you're working through a website, you've got a web-based business. You do get some feedback, obviously, from the shows, that you're at in person, but that's not the majority of your business, right? It's mostly, web-based. So it's a pleasure to hear the feedback, to be quite honest. And it helps, reinforce in my mind that, hey, I'm going in the right direction.
Well, it's just like, okay, like I'm looking at the ITLA Scale all-state machine parts.
Yes.
I mean, like that's a building. All your buildings, you could take one of your kits and build it and just make it a diorama. It's an industrial scene, just in a track and a couple of boxcars in front of it, and create a beautiful diorama in a very small space.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this configurability design that we've been focused on for years now. Because you just hit the nail on the headline. Whether you're a module builder, a diorama builder, a shelf modeler, or a full size layout builder, these kits could work for you. Depending on how you configure the walls, where you put the actual structure, you can do so much with these. I that's what I enjoy designing. Is the ability for the modeler to be able to adjust and tune and do some cool stuff and with the structure and create a unique, a signature structure for their layout. I hope. To your point, about the details, yeah, the more unique little details I can put in, I love to try to do that. I love the engineering and trying to figure some of this stuff out. So I'm happy to hear what you guys are thinking, and yeah, the kits are usable in multiple.
Yeah, I think we
areas.
should explore that as much as possible to try to explain it. But like, I'm looking at the All-State machine kit, and N scale, it's $119.99. I'm
Yeah,
assuming that kit's available in HO as well.
that's the one right below it. Yes.
I knew that. I was just testing you.
Okay.
but but okay, so I'm looking at it, and it's got like just that one kit. We were in the square kind of, in the kind of, it's kind of a little bit of an L shape, and then
Yes.
right beside it is the All-State machine kit with a 4th and 5th floor extension, and it looks completely different.
Yes.
And yet both, like, they just look, the thing of it is, these kits look, I almost, when I saw you at the Otter Valley, I almost bought a kit just to build it for the heck of it, because it's like, man, this is cool. It just
Thanks.
reeks. Does it not reek, Bruce, to you? Does it not
Does it
reek?
stink?
Oh yeah,
John Allen, that John Allen.
yeah, and the thing I'm looking at all these and seeing all these walls and stuff, I keep coming in my head. It's like Design Preservation had their modular wall kits. You can buy the bag of walls and stuff. This is kind of the same thing. You've got all these pieces that are kit, but yeah, you can get several of these things: kit bash, kit mingle, and
Yes.
do whatever, and the end result's going to look good because you're starting with a really good looking product.
Thanks, Bruce. And the one thing I want to touch, you touched on it here, the DPM thing, and yeah, there is some similarity in terms of that theory of modular wall, and I won't discount that, but I think that I would encourage you guys or the listeners to have a good look at some of these photographs, and you can see, at least I can, maybe I'm blind to it now, but the realism that you can achieve in laser engraved wood to represent masonry, I think is much better than what you can get in plastic. And I think you can achieve a really, really accurate finish using the laser engraved products.
Yeah, so realism. I guess that's the word I've been trying to think, is the realism. And you have, what is it? What are those walls that look like they're like half plaster, half brick? What is that?
Okay, so that's a great question. So,
all right, hang on. So we're about 34 minutes in. Have some of the questions not been that good, or?
Well, this is one of the better ones.
Okay.
Just wanted to make a note of that. But, so, but you've picked up on a good point, because that is something that we can do with our laser tooling that perhaps isn't as easily replicated in plastic. You could probably do it in plaster, but I believe that we have more flexibility with using the laser systems. So we can basically take what would look like a concrete wall if it were new, and we can create spalling, and we get flaking concrete or rebar showing through and things like that. Without getting into the details on how that's done, it can be put anywhere on that wall panel, and you could make it large, make it small, make it as subtle as you wish, or as pronounced as you wish. So that's part of the fun too.
And I'll jump in too, because the first wood kit I ever made was an ITLA kit, and it really is a lot of fun. I think a lot of modelers find wood might be a little intimidating, but I really enjoy working with wood, and I prefer working with wood actually to plastic. For some reason, plastic just seems to be more of it, or people seem to be more used to it.
Yeah.
But working with wood, I think is a lot more artistic. And when I met Nick at one of these shows, he was doing a fantastic clinic on how to paint the brick wood panels. And that is something that I learned, from Nick. And the results, as you can see by the pictures, speak for themselves. I mean, it really is a wonderful medium to use for modeling.
I highly recommend anybody that's listening to go to ITLAScaleModels.com and look at this website, because now I'm looking at the page, Assemble ITLA product, and you've got a very, very well written page about how to construct these kits.
Thank you.
I'm talking to you like I'm a teenager or something, because I'm so I've been so excited about this stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well,
thanks. No.
It's just I feel like I'm not.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Sorry, Lionel.
I just don't feel like I'm doing it justice.
Oh, well, that's no worries. We can we'll just keep chatting. We'll see where this leads, right? But I'll tell you that, from what you're saying, and Bruce and what Bernard just touched on, the challenge that I have with my product is communicating the fact that this medium that I produce product in is a lot of fun to work with. It's easy to work with. It's rewarding. And in all honesty, it represents the real world better than plastic does. The challenge is for the average guy, how do you paint the stuff? Right. And I'll be honest with you, when I bought the company 10 years ago, that was my biggest fear, because I, as a traditional modeler at the time, thought to myself, I saw a package in Doug's Trains, the old hobby shop that used to exist down here in London. I saw this, imagine that laser art product hanging in a bag on the shelf there. And I thought to myself, that's pretty cool, but how do I paint it? So that's been my challenge throughout these, I guess it's almost a decade now. But to Bernard's point, and to your point for discovering the how-to articles on the top of my website, it's not as hard as it looks. And once you've tried one, and once you've been, you've made yourself satisfied with your skill, you'll be amazed and you'll love it, and you'll probably want to do more.
Yeah, I guess one of the things you could do is, I see you sell some of the brick panels separately. If you're kind of worried about this, an easy way to get your foot in the door is you can buy some of these panels and then follow your instructions, and if you mess it up, you're not out a whole pile of money, but then you'll probably figure it out it's pretty good, and then go on and buy more.
It's a great point, Bruce. And I just finished with a promotion 2 weekends ago where I had I ran a special on the York Industries kit that you can see on my website there, a really nice, nicely detailed kit. And I included with it 2 extra wall panels for the purpose of painting, testing and trying to paint, and a set of instructions from another modeler named Craig Brotman down in the U.S., who's done an excellent job with a lot of our product over the past year and so. And we're trying to help people understand that it's not hard to paint, and that you just got to try. So, here's a set of instructions. Here's contact information. Here's a couple of free walls. Give it a try.
That's a great idea. Okay, let me just ask, without going into great detail, do you paint it with a brush or do an airbrush, or like how do you paint like a brick wall?
Yes and yes. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. I'll explain it really quick. The simplest way, Lionel, is the good old rattle can spray paint.
Really?
Yes, sir. So if you look at the Allstate building that you so happen to have noticed on our website there, the base color of that model is done with rattle can red primer.
Really?
So yes, sir. So all you do is, honestly, you shoot these walls lightly with a coat of red primer. You can tweak the shade with a little bit of black overspray. You can even take a little bit of sandpaper and start to take a little paint off and create some basic tone in the wall itself. And then, you can clear seal that if you wish. Then you go at it with water-based acrylics with hand paint, and you just kind of start to bring in some of those familiar brick tones you'll see in real life, the oranges, the reds, the browns, that kind of stuff. So not hard to do. So that's one method. one easy method, which I've got explained on the website there.
I'm going to buy one of these. I'm at least going to buy, like the the $39.99 one. I mean, it's like that's something that'd be harmless to buy and build and practice on, and have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one method. And, honestly, you could brush paint it, and people do. They'll just take acrylic right, straight from the bottle and start dry brushing the surface of the walls, as an example. You could use, powders as well. And the beauty of the wood medium is it just takes that stuff and it just grabs it and holds it in. And the one thing that you'll see as a difference if you try the product is that you'll get penetration through the top surface, and you want that penetration. In a plastic kit, you won't get that penetration. You're going to build your layers up on top, which is fine too. However, when you let the wood pull a little bit of that color in, you seem to get the depth and the reality that we strive for in the masonry surface. So it's a control. I like to call it a bit of a controlled penetration. I'm not suggesting you're going to drop it in a bucket of paint, but you're gonna basically put on light layers, and the real secret is layers. Layers of color, layers of tone, and that's really what you got to think about as you apply your tone, your brick colors. But I would tell you that take a picture of something you like, a building you like in your nearby city, and study that picture, and you'll see probably 4, maybe 3, 4 colors if you really, really look hard enough in that brick wall.
Yeah, this question. Once we get our base layer of red primer down, I would imagine you could use something like the Hunter Line stains to add your color on over acrylic paint or something like that.
You could try, Bruce, but I think, and I know Rick and Maureen really well too. Their material will penetrate a little bit too far.
Okay.
And the pigment may not be as strong as you might like it.
All right, because it's already a stain. Yeah.
It's a stain, but it's alcohol based too.
Yeah.
But you can try it, but I would recommend you stick with the acrylics and the sprays. So, but to your point, you can continue to add layers of color just with spray cans if you wanted, and you may, if you look at the pictures on the website, you'll see some that have. You can tell there's multiple layers of color in those walls. But then you can also look at, if you looked at the N scale Allstate as an example that Lionel picked out, that is mostly just the base primer spray. And then I just went over it lightly with a little bit of acrylic, and then I hit it with a dry mortar treatment, and that's it, done. And it all depends on what your perception of real is and what you like.
It almost seems like you can't screw this up. It almost seems like
that's the I'm looking at it.
You're absolutely right. And honestly, if you did, I'd replace your wall section for you.
Wow, cool. Well, that's it. See, it's almost like you can't screw up a podcast, but I've been trying for 8 years and we haven't got it right yet. I mean, Bruce and I spend a lot of hours practicing and making.
It's like being in a professional sport. The amount of practice hours we put in.
Oh, unbelievable.
You guys are seasoned athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And pre-show meetings that we have and the notes.
Oh, I know.
So is there any fear of warpage on this if you get it too wet?
Great question. You can warp it if you soak it in a bucket of water. But in all honesty, if you're just treating the surface with oversprays and just light moisture applications with your acrylics, you won't warp this stuff at all. So we primarily use 1/8 inch thick MDF for our wall sections. So the brick etched stuff, most of the brick etched wall is MDF, and then you will see a couple of layers of 1/16 birch plywood that we will etch the brick into, as well as cornice trim and pilaster trim, but all very resilient products. So you should not warp like you would a basswood or something a bit lighter than that.
What exactly is MDF?
MDF is medium density fiberboard. Is what it's
I knew
officially.
That. I knew that too. Yeah.
Okay, so
Bruce, how many times, Bruce, have I said to you, you know what, this project would be better with medium density fiberboard?
You talk about it constantly.
As opposed to high density fiberboard, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, so you got to know the difference.
Or the low density. I mean,
yeah, no, you don't want to use the low density.
No, low density
not at
stuff's
all.
no good.
No, right out. Forget it.
Medium density fiber. Okay, yes. So it stands for that.
But let me tell you where it's used, though. It comes out of the cabinet making industry. So if you open your kitchen cabinets and you look at the back wall in the cabinet, in many cases that is MDF. That's the purpose of that material.
Really?
The backer. Yep, the back of your cabinets.
And so was that already part of the business when you bought it? Like that was part of what you learned when you bought the business, was to use this particular product? Okay.
Yes, that was part of the original product line. However, the material at that time that was available down in Windsor was more of a high density fiberboard, an HDF. And if you were, I don't know, Home Depot doesn't seem to stock like they used to, but you could go to Home Depot and you could buy a sheet of this MDF. Let's say it's 2 foot square, but you could go there on any given day and you'd get one that looks like it's a dark brown color, and you'd get one that looks like it's a light brown color. And the reality is those are two different products under the same part number. And one's high density because it's got a ton of glue in it, and the other is medium density because it has a lot less glue in it. And it's the medium density one that really laser engraves nicely and takes your glues and your paints really, really well. So that's what we've locked in on.
So did you know anything about laser cutters, or what do you call them? Laser
engravers, laser cutters.
Yeah, did you know anything about that when you bought this business, or did you just kind of jump in with both feet and
yeah, great question. Like a little bit of both, because I'll be honest with you, I'm a recovering graduated electrical engineer, and my thesis was on laser material cutters because I grew up at Windsor Trim, and a lot of what I was doing in Windsor Trim was I was managing a couple of groups that were running cutting operations, and we were just bringing a laser system into the plant at that time that would cut the material for your seats in the vehicles. And that fascinated me at the time, and that's kind of what I based my thesis on as I was graduating. And so I knew about laser systems, I knew about the controls and how they operated. And then I parked that, that got parked in the back of my mind for years and years and years. And then when this opportunity came up to purchase Imagine That Laser Art, understanding the equipment that was involved and the design softwares that were involved, all of that old memory came back, and I wasn't as concerned or scared about the technology as I might have been if I went in cold.
All right, let me ask you another question. I'm assuming you listened to all the podcasts and some of them twice.
Of course.
Absolutely. So you've heard me talk about how excited I am about this hobby is way bigger than anybody realizes, or it's going to explode and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo. When you bought this business, yes. Did you already have a sense that the hobby was ripe for the taking kind of thing? It was primed to jump in and start trying to get into the industry per se?
Honestly, Lionel, I don't think I looked at it in that regard at the time. When I looked at this particular business, I looked at the design, I looked at the technology that was involved, but I saw an opportunity to make it better than where it was at that point in its life cycle, the business. So I saw the opportunity to take those kits and make them, I guess, of a higher quality level than to my liking anyway. I wanted to bring them up into the craftsman realm. And, to not necessarily for competition, or not necessarily because I saw this huge desire or this huge marketing opportunity in the hobby, but more for as a personal challenge, I guess. And to honestly and selfishly, I wanted to build my own stuff too, as a result, for my own layout, but I haven't got there yet in 10 years, but but that's kind of what I saw. I wasn't really looking at it from an industry perspective as you're asking.
So you were a model railroader then before you purchased the business?
A lifelong model railroader.
Lifelong model railroader, and I'm assuming you got into it as a kid. 5,
Yes.
6, 7, 8.
Same story as everybody. Yeah.
Right. Pretty much everybody. So let me ask you my favorite question to ask everybody. What is it about this hobby that draws people in? Because it seems like the people that are in it are in it. Like, do you have any, like, what is it for you? What is it about the hobby for you
that gets me in it? That is the reason why I'm sitting here and working 7 days a week for $2 an hour. Yeah. No, it's like I guess, I don't know, somewhere along the way, perhaps in our youth or my youth, that I must have been exposed to railways and to the whole. I don't want to make it sound cliche, but I mean, like, the whole romance of the railway, the reason it was there, what it brought to the landscape. But in my case, I really liked the mechanical element of it, the machinery. I like the mass, the size of what you saw. And then, when you move away from the rolling stock and you start to look at the infrastructure, the bridges and the buildings and everything that support the railway, for me, that was that was kind of like the glue that held me together around the hobby. And as I grew, and as I went through my youth, and there were other diversions, right, with school and work and girls and such, and everybody will tell you about that kind of stuff. But that bug was still there, right? It was dormant, but it was there, and it's like I don't know how to say it, Lionel. It's like it's like it's a need that you have to fulfill. It's an artistic outlet.
Yeah,
I guess, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
And that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing. I can't model like I used to at the moment because of the business takes the priority, but someday I hope to get back to it.
Okay, so did you have a layout in progress when you bought the business?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's about where it was when I bought the business.
So what? Just give us a brief overview of what you were interested in and what you were modeling.
Oh, well, I'll say that I still model, but rarely. It's I model the Algoma Central Railway in 1951, October specifically, and the reason for that is because on the Algoma Central, steam and diesel coexisted for a very brief moment in time, right around that period before. And it was early 1952 that the Algoma Central scrapped all of their steam locomotives. And so I'm a steam fan. I'm a first generation diesel fan. And I just love that transition era where both of those technologies coexisted together.
Right. And so that layout is now, you're going to, you're going to someday keep it going and all that stuff. That's your intent. Let me ask you a question for both you and Bernard, and then we'll take a brief detour.
Yeah, sure.
Because both you guys absolutely love being in the model railroad manufacturing business. I mean, Bernard, you love it. You just have been so excited every time I see about what you're doing, what you're creating, what's coming next. And to be honest, Nick, I mean, just your product alone indicates how much you enjoy building and creating and selling products. So, do either of you guys have an understanding or why? What is it about being in the model railroad manufacturing business that's so exciting or compelling or whatever the word would be? Bernard, you can take a break. Nick, you go ahead, Bernard, and see if you can answer that question.
It's the creativity. I mean, the same level of creativity and accomplishment that I derived from building my layout is what I feel when I come up with something and create it at mini print. So, I mean, for me, the model railroad, I mean, I did not have a lifelong love or interest in model railroading when I first started. I started modeling late in life. I mean, the layout I'm working on now, which I jokingly refer to as my first layout, or the third iteration of my first layout, really only started 7 years ago in my mid 40s, late 40s actually. And it was an outlet to express creativity. And I actually grew to love trains the more I built the layout. And that creativity and that sense of accomplishment and building something has transferred from the home basement sized layout to the out of home larger than basement sized enterprise. So to me, it's a creative expression. I mean, I really view what Nick does and hopefully what I do as an art project. I mean, it really has the fun and the creativity of I think of myself more as a miniaturist or an artist. I know that sounds a little silly, but I like to sort of express the art side of it as well as the model side of it. I mean, it's you're creatively making something, and that's enjoyable for me.
Well, you know that I take great pride in finding every opportunity I can to disagree with you, and I would completely disagree with you that sounds silly. I think that's exactly being an artisan is really what a lot of the hobby is. And expressing your artistic side or whatever it is. I mean, I don't think people realize just how much of a artistic endeavor model railroading is.
It really is. And when you see something like Nick's building or a beautifully constructed module, and that's one of the things I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about it, is I really see a trend in the hobby towards, 2 foot by 4 foot Fremo modules or N scaler. I mean, I see people, putting a lot of attention and detail into a small space. And I think both my business and Nick's business are well suited to people who want to, take a small bit of real estate and really go deep, and go very realistic in that small space.
That was something I always thought it was. If I ever wanted to get serious about I always thought that's, I think, what got me the most excited, Nick, about your stuff when I really started to pay attention is this is ideal for making small modules. Like I was always, there was a guy in Model Railroader, Bruce. I've talked to Bruce about it many times, and fortunately, Bruce realizes I don't remember what I was talking about last week. But there was a guy in Model Railroader called Ben King.
Ben King, yes. Great Ben King.
And he had a very, very small layout that was featured regularly in Model Railroader. And the entire layout, I don't think, was more than 8 feet or 6 feet long.
No, it wasn't very big at all.
And it was detailed.
It was like 2 feet by 8 feet, something like that.
Beautiful
job on it.
And it was just magnificent. And I think that's another aspect of the hobby that is going to grow and flourish. And it's your kind of kits that is really I'm going to build one of these kits just so I can do that and, get a picture, just to get a photo posted in RMC, and published in RMC because my layout, which is long gone, but my railroad still exists. And I mean, I can take my locomotives and my boxcars and create scenes that would be very satisfying.
Exactly.
And Lionel, what I'm really excited about is I'm building a Fremo module, and I've started it last September, and my goal is to get it completed sooner as opposed to later. But how much fun would it be, if we all built a module and brought it together to a show and hooked them all up together, and there is still the opportunity to do large scale model railroading with a bunch of small scale modules.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, well said, Bernard. Yeah.
So, Nick, so what is it about being in the model railroad industry that seems to, because, like I say, you two guys, and I mean, let's not forget Tim Warris or Lauren James. I mean, if we're going to keep it north of the border, we can mention those guys too. Are Tim Warris is so passionate with fast tracks.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
and
for
sure. What is it about this? What is it about being in this model railroad industry that, like, since you bought you're a perfect case because you bought the business. It's been 10 years. What can Bernard expect 8 years from now or 7 years from now when he's been in business for 10 years? Does it just get more and more satisfying?
If he's lucky, he'll be working 7 days a week, and
and my layout will still be unfinished.
And your layout will be dusty like mine. Yeah,
excellent.
No, but it's a great question. I mean, for me, I think I'm compelled. Maybe it's a curse, but I'm compelled to try to create stuff. I love the engineering behind creating and manufacturing a product. And I just so happen to love model railroading, right? So just the two go hand in hand. So for me, it's like I don't know. I'm gonna dabble in my automotive experience a little bit, because that's really what influenced me in ITLA. I take a lot of the cues that I learned and executed in the auto industry to this business, and I look for efficiency gains, and I try to make sure the tolerance stacking is correct in my kit, so that when you put the window in the wall, it always fits, and the wall always fits with the next wall, that kind of thing. So for me, that's what I love to do. And when I can see a person like yourself or Bruce or Bernard take what I've tried to put together, in terms of a kit, and build it and knock it out of the park, I get more of a reward. It's not necessarily a monetary reward. It's also the gratification of knowing that, hey, I created something that a guy really, really had enjoyed and is going to look at and cherish for a lot of years to come. Yes, it's an artistic endeavor. Yes, it's an engineering endeavor. And then from that spins the business components, right? The, marketing and the managing your material and all that other stuff that becomes a bit of a pain in the butt when, as things get busier. However, that's all part of the package, right? So you either like to do it, or I guess you don't. And right now I like to do it, I guess.
Yeah, and there really is. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't continue to like to do it, because you're creating such a quality product. And so, okay, let me ask you now. One of the other things I love to ask model railroad man, is this hobby just exploding? Because it seems to me like just in the last 5 years, the hobby's just absolutely taken off.
I think it is too, and I'm really hopeful that there's more younger people arriving in the hobby and picking up. I hope where some of us older guys might be leaving off, but I'm hoping also that there's enough people that have a wide enough view of the aspects of this hobby to be able to go in and enjoy it. And you can go and buy the ready to run locomotive, or you can go and buy the Snaptrack or whatever, and you can have a great time, and more power to you. Enjoy the hobby. You're a model railroader. That's great. If you choose to build upon that and get into some of these deeper details that we've been speaking of, then that's what I'm hoping will continue to grow and flourish in our hobby. I think that element is there. I'm hopeful that we continue to grow as a hobby, and because I think it's all what our hobby represents transponds very many boundaries. I mean, it's across. We talked about art, we talked about engineering, we talked about all these other disciplines, and when you can master a couple of those, it's enjoyable. And I'm hopeful that is what people see, and that is what bring people to the hobby.
We shouldn't pass over the fact that I know you don't, but there's a very good ITLA YouTube channel with a lot of. It's a great way to see some of the models and the structures. There's some pretty good instructional videos on there. So I mean, people should, if they're looking for more information about ITLA. I know your channel. That's not what you concentrate on. But yes, it's a pretty decent little channel with a lot of good information that if people are looking for something, they should check into it. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely cruise through it. You're absolutely right. And it's one of these days I'll spend some more time in that element of the business. But you're right though. There's a couple of places you can go. The YouTube channel, as you mentioned, and then on my website, up in those how-to article sections, with a little bit of within half an hour, you're going to get a good feel for what ITLA is all about. And I think you'll like what you see.
Absolutely, you're going to like what you see. Oh, I know what I was going to say, and I'm interested in everybody's opinion. I think this is my new mantra, Bruce. This is my new direction that I'm going. I just discovered this in the last little while, but I actually think I'm right on this. I don't think there's any place you can put your finger on it, but I'm convinced that 10, 15 years from now, this will be the case. We talk about all the ready-to-run stuff and locomotives and cars and stuff like that. And I believe it helps for a lot of people. And especially, I think what's different about the hobby now is it's very easy for young people to connect and find each other. And by young, I mean guys in their 20s, teenagers, guys in their 30s are all finding each other, which was almost impossible 20, 30 years ago, unless you belonged to the NMRA and you were very active in the NMRA or a local club. And I believe all these guys are going to find each other. But I also believe that ready to run is going to help people create something, and then it's going to draw them to be more curious, and they're going to start stumbling on to the ITLAs and the mini prints of the world, and that will draw people into creating and building stuff.
Hope so. I think you're right, Lionel. I hope that's what happens.
What do you think, Bernard?
I think that we are in a new golden age of model railroading, because never before have we had so many different products, tools, techniques. I mean, think about, we're in the rise of sort of what I'll call desktop manufacturing, where there are so many smaller players coming into the market with really novel and unique technologies and views, things that, large manufacturers wouldn't touch, 10, 20 years ago. I can do a short run of something. Nick can do a short run of something. We can really cater to sort of more niche, unique, specialized markets. And that just means there's more unique, fun, novel product out there.
Yeah.
Layouts don't need to all look the same. There's so much new stuff and so much custom things that we can create, that makes a model very personal, very unique, very customized.
I think at the same time, more people have access to building a layout because size is not a mandatory anymore. But at the same time, small layouts are going to become more and more popular. I believe big layouts are becoming more and more popular. I think the whole hobby is just becoming bigger and more accessible as each day goes by. I mean, because like what we're doing here, this podcast, I mean, I've talked about it before. Never before have we had the opportunity to interview manufacturers and have them talk together and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, I just believe in 20, 25 years, we're going to be in a place we never even imagined existed. I really do.
Neat. Yep.
Here.
Yep. And the technology of the internet here, as we're using right now, is really the medium that'll carry that. I think it's
again, I'm assuming you've listened to all the podcasts, Nick, and some of them twice. So
every day.
And Bruce can verify this, and I think Bernard can probably verify this too. I like to tell stories occasionally.
Really?
Occasionally, I like to tell stories.
You don't say.
Yeah. Would you like me to tell you a story now?
Sure.
Okay. Would you like a story, Bernard?
Let me get tucked in. Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Nick? Would you like? It's your show, Nick. Are you okay with the story?
I'm very okay with it. I'll reach for my beverage and just sit back here.
Okay.
And go for it.
So, in my heyday at Model Railroader, I had this monthly column called "Working on the Railroad," and I got to know all the guys there: Keith Thompson, Marty McGurk, Jim Hediger, Jim Kelly, Andy Sporandio, and I would go there on a semi-regular basis, and I got to know, Tom Danneman. I got to know all kinds of people at Model Railroader. Tony Custer, and I even got to the national train shows. I got to work the Model Railroader booth and stuff like that. So one day, I was telling my friend, this would be around the year 2000. And I was telling about 20, maybe about 2000. It's around 2000, let's say that. And I was telling my friend Marty McGurk, who was an associate editor there, I says, hey, you never guess what? I said, I got tickets to see Rod Stewart. Going to see Rod Stewart, because Rod Stewart's come to Toronto. And I got tickets to see Rod Stewart. And it was right around the time that Rod Stewart had his layout featured in Model Railroader for the first time. And Marty says to me, oh, well, you got to call him. I'll give you the number to his home in California, and you got to call because he wants to meet all the guys. And Marty and Keith, they enjoyed pulling my chain occasionally. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so Marty's like, no, seriously, you got to call this number, and because he'll want to meet you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. So anyways, I write the number down and I leave it on the counter. And my wife says, what's this? And I said, well, it's just, and I tell her the story. And she says, well, you're going to call the number, aren't you? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to call the number, because when I call, it'll be Marty or one of the guys on the other end of the line pulling my chain. So eventually she berates me and I call the number. Well, it turns out it was actually Rod Stewart's home. And to make my story very short, long story short, I ended up going backstage, meeting Rod Stewart at the show in Toronto, and was backstage with him, had my picture taken. Well, we had our picture taken. I look like a complete goof in the picture. But and then another time he was in Toronto and he was with Stevie Nicks, I believe, and had the opportunity to get tickets and everything. So I mean, I actually got to meet Rod Stewart because I was in model railroading. Have you, Nick? Have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
Is that what you call a setup? How does that? What's the term for that? Yeah, as a matter of fact, yes, indeed, we did. Yeah. So if you happen to be looking at my website, you might have noticed there's a couple of photos in there. So similarly, Rod's been a customer of ours for 10 years. And we've provided him with lots of different building components over the years. And if you looked at the pictures that you've seen in Model Railroad of his layout, he's a master at kit bashing. And the other guy that would be a master would be George Celios at kit bashing. But Rod likes to create that large, tall cityscape. And he would do that using, I'm sure he used the old Magnuson kits, and he used everything else that was available. And he also had stumbled upon ITLA. So we would provide him with multiple copies of some of the taller building kits that we used to sell early on. And he would bash, 8 or 10 of those kits into a giant skyscraper that stands 6 feet tall. And so that that relationship, if you will, business relationship, went on for multiple years, and it kind of he drifted away for a while, and then he came back. And in the last few years, he's come back strong in terms of wanting certain kits and materials. And again, long story short, so. We got to the point where we're emailing back and forth fairly regularly, and he was, "Hey Bruce, he just did a Grimsby station, as a matter of fact."
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he did, and he broke a whole pile of parts, and I had to ship him a bunch of stuff, which I normally would do for anybody, but no problem. But we helped him through that, and he just finished a whole bunch of other stuff while on the road. So then he put on a show here in London, Ontario, nearby London, Ontario, a couple of weeks ago, and I had been going back and forth with him in email for last few years, and said, "Hey, if you ever get a chance," he offered some tickets up and said, would you come and see the concert if I come nearby?" I said, "For sure." So when London was announced, I shot him a note back and said, "Hey, Rod, you mentioned this in the past, and you're going to be in my backyard. You're 17 kilometers away from me. This might be a great opportunity to see your show, and hopefully I could meet you." And he wrote back and said, "For sure." And, long story short, we were at the show on the Saturday night a couple of weeks ago. He puts on a fantastic show. You probably think the same, Lionel, when you saw him in Toronto. Excellent show, Vegas style type show. And so anyway, we were invited backstage as well after the show, and that's where we had the opportunity to meet him and had a beer with him, and we sat on the couch in the dressing room, and we went over a bunch of stuff that he wanted me to bring along as well, some ITLA stuff. We went through a lot of that. He thanked my boys, for helping build a couple of custom things we had done for him last year, which is another story. And then we're just kind of wrapping up our little visit backstage, and I just happened to mention to him, I said, "Rod, I'd written this to you before, but I'll say it to you, and face to face, in all sincerity, if you ever want to come by and take a look at the ITLA operation, you're more than welcome to. We're only 17 kilometers away." And he says, "Oh, well, mate," he says, "how about tomorrow morning?" And my jaw kind of hit the floor, and the panic look in my wife's, Renee's, eyes was hilarious, because we got to clean the house, but kind of thing. So so the plan was that Rod was going to come and visit Sunday morning, the day after the show, and sure enough, he did. He showed up at our humble place of business, world headquarters for ITLA Scale Models. And we had a fantastic visit, and I'll tell you that this guy is the most down-to-earth gentleman that you could ever want to have in your house and in your basement and in your layout room and in your business. And he was so into the details, and he went through my layout inch by inch. I got his fingerprints on my Algoma Central, the dust on my Algoma Central boxcar, as he pushed it up and down the track, and said, "Yeah, nice track work, Nick." And then, we went through the business, and he looked at the display models that you see pictured on the website. And, he delayed his flight leaving London so he could stay here longer and look at stuff and talk. And, what a great opportunity to have such a guy here in your midst, and humble, very, very gentlemanly, respectful individual, not an arrogant, what you might expect to, in a person of his stature, but just a down to earth super guy, great modeler, of course.
Yeah,
Asked a
that's
ton
the
of
thing.
questions. Yeah. And I'll tell you, went out of here with an armful of stuff again.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that was, that's my little rod story, and it's a, recent one. I just hope that and I know he will continue to be our customer. And I think one of the reasons he still is, and has been a life, like a long-term customer, is that we do our best to help support. And, we don't, how do I say it? I don't brag about the fact necessarily that, hey, Rod's one of our customers, although it helps legitimize the hobby a bit among
Oh, for
your
sure.
non-model railroad friends. Yeah. So I did
Absolutely.
thank him on all our behalfs, because for all of us as model railroaders, I thanked him for being, the ambassador, if you will, of the hobby, for having the courage to step out, in public and say, hey, I'd rather be on the cover Model Railroader than Rolling Stone.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
Wasn't
cool.
that huge?
Yeah,
that was huge.
Yeah.
So, and he said to me, he says, oh yeah, I don't mind that at all, Nick. He says, I'll tell you what I tell everybody that visits my stuff: don't call it a frickin' train set, quote unquote. Yeah, he said that to me twice, and it was so true, right?
Well,
Don't call it a train set.
It's an artistic. I mean, he's an artistic guy with other stuff. I mean, all I remember is we saw him before the show for 10 minutes or something like that, and I mean, we were right behind the curtain, and they were playing. His band started playing "If You Think I'm Sexy," and the crowds kind of started chanting. And the one thing memory I have is my wife goes, "Could we have a picture before you go?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." And there's my wife. It was the early days of digital cameras, and there's him and my wife looking at the picture, because he said, "Well, let's make sure we got a good one." I'm thinking,
that's excellent.
But anyways. He's a model railroader. I think at the end of the day, he just enjoys being a model railroader, period, end of sentence.
He does definitely that. And he said to me, he models, we've all heard the stories, right? That he takes his stuff on the road. It is very, very true. He does. And he told me that, hey, he says, I model 8 to 10 hours a day between shows. And that's my way of relaxing. It's my way of resting my vocal cords and enjoying doing what I do, what I like to do.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. And he is just a modeler, right? He's like one of us.
Sure, absolutely. So in your rod story,
yes,
you talked about how you sent him some parts that had gotten broken, or however they'd gotten broken. And so is that kind of a regular thing for you, like all customers? You said a couple of things earlier on that gave me the sense that, if somebody's putting together a structure and some piece breaks or something, you really don't have any problem replacing it.
Correct. Yeah, for sure. Because, a couple of reasons. One is I want the person to be happy, right? I want them to be satisfied after building our kit. And if they broke it, because it wasn't designed right, I want to know that. I want to be able to fix that. So that's the other reason too, is, I learned from the experience that the modeler had, and I want to make it right. So I'll be honest with you, I don't get too many requests for parts. And I hope that's a good thing. I hope that means that people are able to put the kits together without too much difficulty. But I'm no problem helping out if you do break a part.
Yeah, here's right here on your page. It says part replacement guarantee. If you break a part during normal handling, we'll replace it at no charge, which really puts at ease anybody who's thinking about buying a kit. It really puts at ease that, I don't have to get it right the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like I said, it's a stretch as a manufacturer, and Bernard will second this, is that, you're throwing a risk out there, because you could have a whole bunch of people that take advantage of that, and you can tell pretty quickly who they are. But I again, I want the person to have a good experience. I want you to be satisfied with the product, and hope that you'll come back for another one.
So now go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and we are in the hobby business. I mean, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. It's a hobby. So, I mean, my job, and Nick, I think feels the same way. Is that it's entertainment. It's supposed to be. This is not supposed to create stress. So,
Yeah.
we're in the business of providing people with fun things to do.
So I guess I'm assuming you two guys talk about the business of model railroading. Am I correct, or am I assuming too much? No,
quite a lot. No, we have our own mental support group that we.
Yes, we do. Yes. It helps, though. Lionel. Honestly, it does, because even though Bernard and I are two different elements of the hobby in terms of what we produce and provide, they coexist and they complement each other. And his business experience can be similar to my business experience in terms of operations and such. So we can learn a lot from each other.
Absolutely. And it helps to talk these things through. I mean, there are not a lot of small model railroad manufacturers out there. So, if chances are, if I've got a business question, it's something that Nick has experienced or thought about, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. So I see in this picture, the picture you do have on your website with Rod Stewart, it seems like there's a bunch of mini prints stuff in front of the building that he's sitting behind.
Oh, you have a good eye. Yes, you do. So there's, not to let too much of the cat out of the bag. So the kit that Rod is sitting behind there is something that we're working on launching, probably be in a couple of months, maybe at this point. But the parts in front are, yes, they're mini prints. And I jokingly spoke to Bernard a little while back and said, hey, Rod had fondled your mini prints for quite a while on his visit here. But Rod was appreciative. He liked them. He really did. And I think, looking at that, as you see in that photograph, all of that detail and all of that stuff, he sat there for a good 20 minutes and just studied that stuff. He was so into the detail.
Why is it there? Like, is that part of a kit or something? Or is it just you happen to buy all that mini print stuff and you just put it out there? Or?
That's confidential. I can't tell you yet.
Okay. Well, could you tell me by November?
I could tell you by November.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. So no, that's so what I mentioned just a few minutes ago that the Bernard's and my business can be complementary, right? So we're we talk a lot and we're looking for ways to I want to bring the detail level up in my kits, and Bernard, what can you do to help me do that? And at the same time help him and give him more marketing, more items to market, and in a different, maybe in a structural category, rather than oddities and things, right?
Yeah, and laser, I mean, I'm a big believer that there are things that I could 3D print that I won't, because they should be produced in wood. So there are certain things that lend themselves to certain materials. So I'm a big believer, and I'll give you an example. I came out with a canoe, and I wanted real wood paddles for the canoe that I was releasing. So, I mean, I could have 3D printed them, but I thought that they would be much better if a wood paddle was actually made out of wood. So Nick created the most beautiful, fine, delicate, tiny HO scale 3D, laser cut wood canoe paddles. Completely prototypical, beautiful wooden. What was it, birchwood?
It's birch, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful birchwood HO scale canoe paddles to go with my 3D printed canoes. And we've collaborated on a number of things. I brought out some trailers, and I wanted a nice sort of skirting and wooden decking kit to go with my mobile homes. So Nick worked on those. So I think that our two businesses complement each other very well. And Nick has certainly been able to help me out with adding some laser cut wood details to the 3D prints I create. And I hope that I'm able to return the favor and, add some dimension and some uniqueness to his kits.
Absolutely. Yep.
I find it fascinating that three businesses that I consider to be top end or high quality are all in the Southern Ontario area. I find that to be fascinating.
Well, maybe we're all lucky. I don't know.
I don't know. I just maybe there's a hidden talent here that I was unaware of. Don't you find that to be interesting, Bruce?
Absolutely. That like you said, there's three top manufacturers. Our within a couple hours of each other.
Right. Okay, so I don't think we covered enough, Nick. I don't think we covered enough or explained well enough about these. A lot of this stuff is modular.
Good point. Yeah, for sure. And I mentioned configurability earlier on, when I say configurability, it's really the ability to take the wall sections in many of these kits and reposition them as you want to. You don't want a loading dock here, or you want a loading dock, 6 inches to the right. You have the ability to do that. You can make a building totally flat. You could make a building shallow relief, or you could make it fully walled. So if you look at the photographs, many of the kits have that engineered ability to do that. And that's part of the marketing that I want the ITLA brand to represent, is that when you buy one of these kits, you can build it in 12 to 15 different ways if you really count the number of positional moves you can make with the walls. And then the kit that Lionel builds is not going to look exactly like the kit that that Bruce builds, and that's good. I think that's a good thing for the hobby. And so that's the design direction that we've gone in for the last 10 years.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's really something that people need to be aware of, that's a part of your product, because it's fantastic. Like kind of like 3D flats, you can build them like that,
Yes.
Man, it's great stuff that way.
Thank you. Thanks.
Fantastic stuff.
And it's really your imagination, right? It's how you apply your imagination to the product.
Exactly. Like, I imagine this to be a good podcast, and we're still waiting.
I hope you're right.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's trademark, guys. You can't use that.
They can't use it. Sorry. We'll get our lawyer. We'll get our lawyer in here.
I can't imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine how many times I've wanted it to be a good podcast.
Yeah. I have a question for you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We're out of time. No. Go ahead. Okay. I talked right over you, Bruce. Wasn't that rude of me?
Oh, yeah, it was. But I'll ask the question: how did you get into the elevated stuff?
Well, the elevated stuff was part of the original company, Imagine That Laser Art. So we were able to carry that forward, and it's a really neat niche product. And I'll tell you, there's an awful lot of people that are interested in that type of modeling. I guess it would be. Almost like traction modeling, or in that kind of over in that segment of our hobby. And the cool thing is,
if I may interrupt just for a second, when you're talking about elevated stuff, what you're talking about is very similar to what's in Chicago, downtown Chicago, or downtown New York.
Yeah.
What is elevated track? It's the
elevated railway structure. Yeah. So they call them, believe it or not, they call them subways, which doesn't make sense because they're up on pedestals or up on bridge structure. But yeah, in Chicago and in New York and even in Boston, there was large systems, right, that move people around. Chicago's still in operation. I think New York is pretty well mothballed. I could be wrong, but Boston's still going, I believe, too. But Bruce, yeah, that was one of the original product lines that came with the purchase of the business. But we've again built upon it and taken it a little bit further down its life cycle to hopefully a little more appealing and buildability. I think I made a few improvements in as well along the way. So again, pretty good product line. A lot of people are interested in it. You can also, if you have Bruce, you might have picked this out. You can look at a couple of those sections and think to yourself, hey, I could use those as maybe standard gauge viaducts, over roadways or something like that. So
yeah, it would be good. It would be good for that. And I'm looking
bridge structure. Yeah,
I'm looking at the page with customers' photos, and this one where the guys built like the 14-story skyscrapers. Like, holy moly!
Yeah. And Rod wants some of the elevated, so that's my next project for Rod. Will be producing some elevated for him.
Okay. I don't think we really can't pass by. We've got to emphasize again that people need to understand these are very modular pieces that can be fit and shaped into just about anything. So Correct. that's a very important feature of ITLA models. We don't want people to pass or not get the full impact of that.
Thanks, Lionel. That's awesome. Did you have a look at the modular wall system category that's out
Uh,
on our website?
all right, let me go up. Let me go look at. Okay,
Yeah, that's interesting. So
where do I find that?
Okay, so right to the right of the structures category. So go down past Rod's smiling face.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me get back to the homepage then.
Okay.
I'm going back to okay. And past Rod, past. Okay, then I see HO. So all right, where are we going now?
So click into that category, N and HO scale wall module system.
Oh, okay, there it is. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so here's exactly what you said a moment ago. This product will allow you to build any kind of factory, if you will, or industrial structure with this type of art. This is a reinforced concrete architecture. And Bruce, you'll remember how much of this stuff did you see in Windsor?
oh, there's lots of kicking around Windsor.
Exactly. That's the inspiration that caused me to do this, because this reminded me so much of Windsor and even Detroit, where I spent some time in the auto industry across the river there. And this is the stuff I love. I love this industrial architecture. And if you scroll down that page, Lionel, you're going to see a couple of different examples in N scale and HO scale of what you can build with these wall modules. And every one of these walls is a separate kit. So yes, so you can purchase these kits and you can stitch together a building, again, full flat if you want, or with the relief that you can see in some of these photographs, or fully sided, like you can see in that N scale example.
Right. And there's even free planning templates.
Exactly, downloadable templates, full size. So a lot of guys will take advantage of that. And they'll take those off the website, and they will mock up. I've seen some great pictures of the paper mock-ups that they'll come up with, and that's really what helps them decide. I need 2 of this, 4 of that, 5 of this, and that's how they place their orders.
Years and years ago, our friend Jim Sacco, he had something similar to this. His City Classics, and he had something similar to that. And he never really, it wasn't to this extent, but it was that same idea for sure.
Same idea, but now let me give you another example of why this is cool stuff. Because every one of those, if you look at the building face as an example on the website, every one of those windows and every one of those brick inserts is a separate component.
Really?
So yes, so you can plug and play with those components within the wall frames, the gray wall frames you can see in the photo. So the beauty here is that you don't have to mask the parts to paint. So you paint them all separately. So now you get clean, crisp lines. You don't have to worry about trying to mask that brick, the brick portion underneath the windowsill. All that is done separately and then plugged back into the wall frame.
Jeez. Pretty cool. It's really, really nice stuff. It really is. I mean,
thank you. Yeah.
We're going to have you. We'll have you back on again for an update. So what's in the future? We'll finish up with what's in the future for ITLA. Where do you see the next couple of years taking you? Do you continually try to come out with new kits and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, constantly. I mean, it's just, I'll be honest, I haven't had the traction that I wished I had. There's a lot going on in life at the moment, but we're going to, we've got a bunch of stuff in the hopper in the background that we've been working on. There's some industrial product that we'll be coming out with. And also we have a line of some cityscape that we're going to bring back out. Some new designs within that cityscape that are going to play on this configurability design direction that I love to pursue. So if you think about the small downtowns around North America, so you could pick a city and you're going to find 2- and 3-story structures that are still in use today, but were built turn of the century or early 1900s, and you'll see that stuff everywhere. And that's another type of architecture that fascinates me when you look at the variation among them. But you have the streetscape, and then you have the back alley behind that, and that's those two. They're 2 different worlds almost, and we're going to represent both of those fairly well. And the product will be adjustable and configurable. And I think the people that are in that kind of a market are going to be very surprised at what we're going to be able to provide.
I just have to ask you for my friend Scott Lister. Do you think you'll ever do anything in S scale?
I honestly don't see it in my near future. There are a couple of things that I think I could do, but honestly, I don't have plans in the near future to do that.
Okay. Well, maybe you could just let's
apologies.
Yeah. Or just say something like, "But yes, when the opportunity arises, I'll be all over that."
Yeah. Yes. Of course.
You know what the problem is? He's kind of tricked me into building an S-scale module,
It is a cool scale. I must admit.
It's the coolest scale of all, really.
Yeah.
It's the perfect size. It should have been HO should have been S. It really should have, because
I agree with you.
It doesn't take up much more room, and you know it's just the right size. It's a fun size.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's it, boys. Do we have any more questions?
No, I think it's been great learning more about the ITLA products and seeing how fantastic they are, and looking at what others have done with them. And yeah, it's great stuff.
Bernard, anything left to say?
Well, we're going to get down into our basements and work on our layouts at some point. But until we do, we're going to continue having fun coming up with new and crazy ideas.
Yeah. And it's all started because of a beaver for you.
For me.
Yeah. So, you know what your one job to do now is, don't you, Nick, when this podcast comes out?
I think I might know, yes.
Wait, maybe you and I can work on a project together.
Absolutely. Be happy to. Yeah, but thanks for the opportunity, guys. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it's lots of fun. And we'll have you on again as, updates and as life goes along, because it's always fun to connect with somebody and then keep checking in with them.
Yeah.
I made that mistake with Bernard, and I can't get rid of him now. Bernard.
Sorry, I left for a moment. Were you talking about me?
Yeah. No, nothing was said.
Nothing. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay.
No, there's nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
You know what? I interviewed, I don't know when it came out, or if it's come out yet, or if it's about to come out, but I interviewed Bernard for a short segment when we were at the S-Scale convention in beautiful Buffalo, which is a sentence that I find that really hard to put those two words in the same sentence. Beautiful Buffalo. Or maybe just Buffalo. But anyways, Bernard says, "You want me to talk again?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you speak up." He says, "But I got nothing to say." And I said, "Well, I know that, but say something anyways." Bernard, you're an asset to the hobby. Nick, you're an asset to the hobby. Bruce, you're a friend of mine.
There you go. Go Windsor. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just here. That was great. We're going to do this again. All right. So, Bruce, unless Bernard, you'd like to give out the email address. This is like the second or third show, Bernard, where you've been just like a co-host or just one of the participants.
I know. It's getting to be awkward.
So let me tell you another story, Bernard.
Uh-oh.
Or not Bernard. Nick, let me tell you another story.
Okay.
I had this guy I wanted to interview on the podcast. So I sent him a headset.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for a while. I don't know what he did to it. It stopped working. He said, "The headset you sent me doesn't work, blah, blah, blah." No problem. Really enjoy having you on the show. I'll send you another headset.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him another headset. Now, this particular guy, he works a lot in miniatures and he prints a lot of things. And somehow he decided he was going to glue the little foam part to his microphone.
Crazy glue is your friend.
And that headset stopped working. So Bernard now holds the world's record for the number of headsets sent from the AML headquarters with three. But in return for that, I have now made him the most disregarded AML fan or a Patreon member.
Yes.
Well, you got to be famous for something. Right?
Yeah, I owe him I owe him a whole bunch of Barb's chocolate chip cookies, and then when I was going to Woodstock, I was packing up shirts for everybody, and I got to Bernard, and I ran out of XLs in one particular, and I thought, oh well, it's just Bernard. I won't bother getting his. And then I realized Bernard is like the most abused member of the AML Patreon family.
Yet he keeps coming back.
And yet he keeps coming back. That's right.
It's Hotel California.
Yeah.
That's it.
Check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Bernard, do you know the email address?
I do. It's modelerslife at gmail.com, and that's modeler with one L, like
ITLA.
Like ITLA, not two L's like little.
They're pretty good. That was pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you, Nick.
What's that?
It's a good thing we don't live very close together, because whenever if I'm ordering pizza from Domino's, or I'm at a local restaurant and I need to, or any restaurant in North America, and I have to give them my name for the reservation, I always just say Nick.
It's true. I witnessed that.
Yeah.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like, what's your name? Lionel? Arnold? No, Lionel. No. You know what? Just Nick. That'll do.
I love it. That's awesome.
This is funny. When Nick goes out, he uses the name Lionel.
There you go. Exactly.
Yes, because I'm a model train lover.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. How big is your layout?
It's about 10 by 22 by 18.
Perfect. Yeah. This is Bruce. This is on the free channel. So if you didn't catch Bernard's rendition of the email address, if you just go to our website, which is amodelerslife.com, and scroll down a little bit, you'll see a picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state. And all you got to do is click on that photo, and the email address is already automatically in there. All you got to do is put in your subject, your title, and your text, and you're ready to go. And also, if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, or you ever only listen to the free shows on Monday, every Tuesday we also have a podcast, and for just 16 cents, 365 easy payments of 16 cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting fun. And that's on our Patreon channel, which our buddy Kaylee Zhang refers to as the Antics channel.
And oh boy, is it ever.
Antics have known to occur.
Yeah, antics have known to occur. I think now. Oh yeah, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I can't say that I have.
Say yes. Say yes.
Okay, yes, I do.
Say yes.
Good answer, Nick. Yes is the correct answer. Yes.
If you go to Midwest Model Railroad, which is in Independence, Missouri, and run by our buddy Stephen Atwell and his dad Gary, it's a 15,000 square foot hobby shop. It's like walking through a Walther's catalog is what it's like. But if you go to their website, midwestmodelrr.com, and scroll all the way across to where it says AML, and you click on that, boom, you are in a wonderland of AML merchandise. You got your hats, your hoodies, your mugs, your T-shirts. And in amongst all those T-shirts, you can find one with a hot dog on it.
Awesome. I'm going to look for that right now.
Yeah, I would if I was you. I'm guessing you're a size large?
Large to XL.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, large if you want them skin tight.
Yes. Like a hot dog in a bun.
Yeah, like a hot dog in a bun. There you go. All right. And the final thing is, Nick, at the appropriate time, we need you to say happy rails to you.
Okay.
Now it's imperative. It's imperative. There's no singing. There's no dancing. There's no interpretation. It's just happy rails to you with a lot of enthusiasm.
Okay.
All
Got it.
Well, Nick, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.